Welcome to Brick by Brick. Join me, Loren Wernette, as I share my personal journey of building a thriving real estate and hard money lending business from the ground up. Along the way, we'll explore the strategies, challenges, and breakthroughs that come with growing wealth. Whether you're a seasoned investor or aspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the world of private lending and real estate, this podcast is packed with actionable insights, real-world stories, and mindset tips to help you build your own path to success brick by brick. Welcome to another episode of Brick by Brick. Today I have a good friend and awesome guest, Kelli Garrett. Kelli is somebody that I met at a mastermind down in South Carolina. She has a number of businesses, including a hard money lending business. She's been involved in another number of other ventures across all different aspects of business. And I'm super excited to have her on today. Kelli, thanks for joining us.
Loren, thanks for asking me.
So I gave a very, very brief and high level view of some of the things you've done. And I probably could talk for 10 minutes about all the things that I even know about you do, and probably another 15 about things I don't know. So could you just give the audience a little view of kind of where you got started, where you are today, and kind of some of the big strokes on how you got there?
Yeah, I've been in the business a long time, so been on this earth a little bit longer, so I've done a little bit more. I'm an entrepreneur, period. I just happen to own a lending company as probably my last quarter of my business, or my last business life, if you will. So yeah, I played basketball as a college athlete, as a 4-time All-American at the College of Charleston. Basketball was my life for a long time, and that's a lot of who I am. Team sports, working with others. Being an athlete, all the time management skills, all the quick decision making, all those kind of things that go along with learning failure, learning how to kind of lean into a lot of accolades and how to keep your head straight and not be too confident and too cocky during that time, but also know that wool could be pulled out from under you as well. So the failure and the wins, I've really learned to deal with. I love a team. I love working with a team. So that's where that business world has come about. And I think I just used business after basketball. And you got to remember, back then we didn't have the possibilities for women's basketball like we have now, which I love to see. So I went to work right after college, and I went blue collar because I grew up on a small farm. So I grew up working really, really, really hard every day. My parents worked really hard. Saturday was like a Tuesday. I mean, there's no days off except Sunday. I grew up in a Southern Baptist home. So Sundays were a time where we did rest and was in church. So I went straight to UPS. It's a long story how I got there, but got there. Day after I graduated, started working and loading trucks, driving trucks early on with a college education. I didn't go in as a management person. That's not the way they do. Ended up probably after 2.5 years managing a group of people and a group of union employees. That really helped me really, really sharpen my management skills early on, because I'm now probably 22 years old. I was a young freshman, so that made me a young senior. I'm probably leaving at 21. I'm now driving, and then I'm managing probably maybe 23 years old, young female, which is a male-dominated, not to say sport, company. And so I learned to manage people, probably the hard way. But anyway, managing people really, really helped me along the way. And so I left UPS after 12 years. They had ran me up the corporate ladder. I moved 11 times in those 12 years. They loved having a female. I probably checked the affirmative action box back then. And they ran me up the corporate ladder. And I found myself in Newark, New Jersey, hated it. Where I was living, wanted to come back to the South. And so obviously you can hear this Southern accent. So it didn't go too far up with those New Yorkians and New Jersey up north people. So I had to come back to the South and just thought, you know what, if I'm putting all this energy and time and commitment and passion into a company, my daddy was an entrepreneur. So I knew that I could possibly do it. So I got a lot of support from my parents at the time. Cut to now, I'm probably 30, early 30s, and went out on my own and started a lending company. It's a long story how I found them. A couple that I trained under. I worked for them for free for about maybe a year, learning the lending company. I had already left UPS, so I had stock options and had saved money. So I didn't need to, but I just went to this couple that I met weirdly at an insurance, talk about being in the right rooms. I was at an insurance because I needed insurance after I left corporate America. So met them, loved them to death, just started talking to them and found out they owned a lending company in the suburb of where I live. I live in Charleston. And I just said, hey, can I come? If y'all will train me, I'll work for you for free. Back then there's no cell phones, so I'm answering the phones. I said, hey, you don't need to clean the office. I'll clean the office if you'll just train me. And they did. And they did a really good job with it. And I learned a lot underneath George and Sonia Pitt, and then opened my own shop probably about a year later and started out in the lending world. And from lending, I learned the education of how to buy properties. I was thinking, like, I'm sitting here doing loans for this investor. He's buying 10 cash flowing properties. I should be doing the same thing. It don't take me long to figure out things. And my dad had little duplexes and small trailer parks. So he piddled as well as, the farm as well as his other business. So I had seen it from afar and just kind of got into the lending business. Lending took me into real estate, and then cut to 2025. I'm back in lending. I had sold off a lot of my properties. During that first lending spurt, I had bought probably, 400 units around town, small multifamily, single family. And I had now had them for about 18 years or 16 years. And so in 2018, I sold it all. It took me about a year to sell them off. I wanted to be more passive in real estate. And I wanted to be more active in my businesses because I loved running my mortgage company. I got into the convenience store business for a little while, for about 8 years. So I always had like a business, and I'll get to that in a second. But my real estate was also active. But I'd already had my time in that. I wanted to be more passive in real estate. So in 2018, sold all those properties off and had 2 buckets of money. And I said, okay, I'm going to passively invest with this few $1 million. And I'm going to private lend with this other couple $1 million. And so in my private lending world, you know how fast a couple $1 million goes like that. And so in 10 loans, my phone was still ringing, but I was out of money. So I teamed up with 2 guys and we started a debt fund. And that's how Rehab Wallet was formed. Actually, on a walk one day, me and this guy named Danny Randazzo, we still walk probably weekly. And kind of, we called it our dream walk. He was like, Kelly, how's your week going? And I said, hey, I'm out of money, but my phone's still ringing. And so we figured out that day we can team up. They can raise the capital and I can lend it out. And so that's how Rehab Wallet was formed. But from 2000 to today, I've had a lending company from 2000, about 2010. Then after that, I had gotten a mortgage business a little while for about 8 years. Sorry, I got in the convenience store business for a little while for about 8 years. I've owned an appraisal company. A landscaping company. It was doing about $500,000 a year. Just some service industries. And then one of my last one was a manufacturing company. And we had done, I sold that off in 2019. And then we opened Rehab Wallet in 2020. So my business fulfills this little team sport type of thing. I use my business as active income, meaning I call it, money. And my real estate, I don't really touch. And that's my wealth builder and my depreciation play to offset the income that I make on my business. So I started out in the lending business. I'll probably end in the lending business. And it's just been a fun journey just because I think through basketball has really mandated that I personally, when I say mandated, personally check a box inside my soul that I just enjoy a team. The solo entrepreneurship is just not for me. I enjoy building teams, building a culture, letting them grow, seeing how they grow. And I really enjoy that. So Rehab Wallet has about 13 employees all over the country. We all work virtually. And then we have a long-term lending arm, and it's got about 15 employees, and then equipment financing piece of that finance too. So lending is where we're at, but we got a few companies inside that.
Wow,
that's a lot. It sounds like a lot, but I've just been on this earth longer, and every year, you go 2000. My first lending company, the market made me sell that. 2008 come around, and I was in the broker business. It forced me to push and sell that to a real big mortgage shop because I had a bunch of employees I didn't want to lose. So that forced me there. I was already in the convenience store business kind of in tandem. And I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to open up another. I'm just going to kind of soothe into the convenience store business. But I've always, run it with an org chart that maybe has Kelly up here. And I like a business big enough that it can substantiate expenses. which means a right hand, like a operation manager, if you will, or a managing director, so that I'm not getting those first calls. I've been there, done that. I just don't want that anymore. I want to build a business big enough where I have enough revenue to substantiate a team instead of it just being Kelli to the front line. There's lots of people in between me and that. So that's the way I've kind of put it on my vision board, and it's working out. And I just love having a team around me.
It's a lot to unpack there. I'm not trying to figure out where to start.
Okay.
So I know we talked a little bit about the basketball and the team sport, and I want to get to that, but we have a shared history in that we both grew up on farms. And so I want to touch on that, because I feel that a lot of the skills, mindset, and mentality around work ethic, pushing myself, learning new things, having a mentality of being able to figure something out has lent me to being successful in whatever I have done. And I'm curious if you think that same thing happened with you on your farming background, and if that translated to basketball and then to UPS and then on to your other endeavors.
I really think so. I didn't know that about you. I don't think you've told me and I've dismissed it. I can't remember, but that is it's a common denominator of, I think, just hard workers. And I think, and I said that very generally, or kind of macro speech with hard workers. But what I mean is that when you work on a farm of some sort, just because it gets dark or light, it doesn't mean your day's over. It just means like there's always something to do, and there's always a headache of some sort, whether it's heat, whether it's rain, whether it's a snake, whether it's bugs, whether it's just hard. All those things, you just fight through it. And so I think I used that. My dad we lost him about 15 years ago, way early in life, 65, hardest working man on the planet, and expected a lot out of us. And so when we're out there and it gets dark, he just brings in the lights. Or when we're out there and there is this field, and this long field of corn or okra or whatever I'm picking for the day, right? You just can't even see the end. I think the mindset of you finish. You don't know when it's going to end. It's supposed to end. And finally you start seeing the light in the tunnel, like, thank God that row's ended. And so I think just being able to finish, and I used to say this a lot. I don't say it quite as much just because I'm gotten a little older, but physically you could not outwork me, because I could stay at something so long. You can't outwork me. Now, physically, I probably can't do what I used to do, but mentally I can stay at something pretty long. So I think that is what's been my success between relationships, is just I can stay at something. It might seem like I've done a lot of different things, but I've been in real estate for 25 years. I have ran real estate investment groups for 25 years. I do the same thing every day. So persistence and grit, I think, are my two. And that translates, just like you, that translates back from the farm. That's just what you saw every day.
Yeah, it's so true, because I think the other piece of that is the starting. There's a lot of people, my kids are guilty of this. They don't want to start something because it's undesirable. It's something that they just don't want to do, so they avoid it. And that's just not an option when you're growing up on a farm. Like, you don't want to hoe weeds. Well, guess what? They have to be hoed. And so you do it. And then the next step is now you have to get it finished. And that's the persistence comes in. But the first step is the hardest, of just starting to do it. And that is so much about businesses like that. Like, I don't want to go do X task, right? But I know that it has to get done, and no one else is going to do it unless I do it, unless I hire somebody to do it. And then I got to train them how to do it. So I still need to know how to do it, right? So
yeah, it's so true. There's plenty of times, I'm sure, when you got woke up, as I did as a kid, it's not like you jump out of bed super excited about going and doing the work for the day, whatever, he was ready for us to do, especially in the summertime. But it didn't matter. It's just ingrained in our subconscious to get at it, regardless if it's hot, or if I gotta keep talking about snakes just because I hate snakes. There were snakes all the time, and you just run across it, and you're like, you got to keep going, and you keep going. It's hot, it's raining, it doesn't matter. It's interesting. You can fight through a lot. So when those hard times come, and they will come. I mean, when things are going great for me, I start wondering, like, oh God, what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. And I think that the way we handle that stress, or that pivot, or whatever it is, that curve in the road that's coming and popping us and throat punching us for the day, I just bring it on, just bring it on. It's It's nothing new.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't have the snakes. I grew up in Michigan, but we had snow.
Okay, yeah,
And
you
so,
didn't have snakes. We had snakes
so
in the South.
everybody was excited about snow days except for me and my siblings who had to go shovel bunks to feed cattle in this 4-foot snow
See,
drifts.
it didn't matter. They
So,
had to be fed, right? They had to be fed. That we had tons and tons and tons of chickens and pigs and so forth, and they had to be fed. I did that every morning, probably from 6 years old till I graduated from high school. It didn't matter how cold and how early or how whatever it is. They got fed every morning.
So we transition out of farm, we move to basketball and team, right? And so you take that grit and perseverance, and now you have to figure out how to work with the team. And obviously in team sports, there's a coach and there's kind of someone leading that, but then you move to UPS and you're kind of thrown into this fire of leading a bunch of people. What were some of the challenges that you faced while you were learning how to lead a team, and some of the mistakes that you made that you could pass on to help other people that are learning a team?
Well, I think I had to learn, and I was naive about this, and I'm sure you were too, and I still fight it, that everybody does what they say they're going to do, and everybody wants to work as hard as you want to work. So I had to learn how to lead different people differently. Some people you can jump in my face if I respect you. You can jump in my face, even push on me or wrap me up and get me to do something when I was playing college ball. Not everybody can be done that way, especially these days. You can't even touch, you're definitely not going to touch anybody. Everybody responds differently, and everybody's push button is differently. So that probably was one of the hardest things for me. And you got to remember, my first time as far as leading people was unionized men. And I had to win them over. I had to win them over by showing that I could do it too. So in that culture at UPS is very hardworking on the front line. It's very hardworking. So they knew me as a driver, and there will be times when my first managed a group of drivers. Let's just use, there's probably 25 drivers downtown Charleston, and that was my first driver group. Okay. There will be times when I would just, I'd have to go drive and have them sit in the jump seat for them to see that I could do it too. Like I can pick it up, put them down, deliver this. So I learned every route. In case they were on vacation, I sometimes had to cover it, or I would have to train a new person. And so they saw me picking them up, putting them down, picking them up, putting them down, being able to run routes and that kind of thing. And I learned that at that level was that I had to lead by example and physically lead by example. Then as I grew within the organization, grew levels, I had to learn the second step is now how to learn, because I'm not going to be able to lead by example, because now I got I got supervisors underneath me. So now I'm a manager, and I used to be a supervisor, and then you got the drivers underneath the supervisor. So now I can't lead that way because I'm not ever even in my Browns. I'm not ever in my uniform anymore. Now I had to learn how to lead differently. And that's through, I think, just a culture. And I learned that leaders create cultures. Cultures create the behaviors in our employees. And those behaviors is what gets us results. So I had to learn how to lead through a culture. And that was and I just leaned back into my raising of grit and perseverance. I was always the first one there and the last one to leave. I was always, very dependable, and not just dependable on being there, dependable, doing the same thing all the time. If you're going to be unsafe, then I'm not going to let you slide. You're going to be unsafe, I'm going to call you out, write you up, or have my supervisors write you up. And it was that type of culture inside there. We're going to be productive because production is very important at UPS. We're going to be safe, and we're going to have we're going to be high in quality, not making mistakes, missed deliveries, and that kind of thing. So I had to teach that way and be real consistent with those guys, because it was a different environment. Then I had to learn that the union world, and the union world is, they don't want to see you touch a package because that means you're taking a job. But you got to remember, where we come from, it's to jump in the fire and help and touch and move stuff around. But in that environment, it made me like almost have my hands tied behind my back every day because I couldn't touch a package. If I touch a package, there was a shop steward in my office the next day saying, so-and-so touched a package. I need him to be paid 15 minutes. So it's very, very interesting, but UPS was very helpful in where I am today, where I just have to lead from up here instead of the front line. And the only way to do that is through culture. My level of acceptance is really big, high accountability, org charts, hierarchical, chain of command. that's kind of the culture that I kind of exist, because I had to UPS pushed me to do that. Early on, it was all about my back and how fast I could work and how good I could work. And then I moved into being a true manager vicariously through the union culture.
That's really interesting. I think a lot of people, similar to me, that left a W-2 job and then went into entrepreneurship, they try to bring the culture from their company that they were used to. Like, I worked at my company for 10 years before I left. And I even see it in our small company, some of the things that I'm trying to implement, like this is too BASF-esque. And that's a 130,000 employee company. Then you can't directly translate that over. But there are pieces that need to be brought over. Like, one of the things that was really beat on with me in that is how to communicate, right? And not just how to communicate like clearly so people understand, but that how I think is different than how other people might take what I say, right? And so we spent a lot of time going through the personality traits, and this is a driver, this is an analytical person. Did you experience some of that type of training or that type of thing in UPS, and has that come over to Rehab Wallet or any of the other companies that you've started?
Yeah, those personality trait things wasn't around back then. So I didn't learn through that at all. It's definitely prevalent these days, and we use it now. It's a big deal. It's a big deal now to make sure that so-and-so will fit the culture, or so-and-so is capable of doing this job. He might, or she might be perceived. She might think she's perceived as X, or she is of X, but in that role might not just not be a good fit. But I think those personality tests are huge, are big, great key indicators of I think success and retention inside a company. But we didn't have those growing up. I think that we just you just learn it's a very seniority thing at UPS. So everybody starts out loading or washing trucks in the afternoon. Then the next step is driving. Everybody, board of directors, everybody at UPS started this way. And then you can go into a management position if you have a degree. And so I think it was like, who is a true operator? And then who should go into sales? It's a different personality, right? It's a little bit softer, but there's a gritty kind of, it's crazy. It's organized chaos in those facilities to get a package to where it is. And you can't be too soft you would do great in there. Anybody that worked like we did and grew up like we did is a great operator. But, somebody else might be a better salesperson. Somebody else might be a better finance person and so forth. So the indicators, I think they just went true. The true internal interviewing skills were on point back then. Instead of these days, we go more on apps and tests to get us through.
But the fundamentals were similar, right? You're trying to match the right person to the right job, because if you put me in some role where I'm in like controlling or something, where I'm just dealing with spreadsheets, I'm going to be miserable versus somebody else that may hate sales or something that I more enjoy. And so you got to fit the right person in there. And then also they have to fit within the overall culture. And 100%. So you're focused a lot on the culture component here. So let's talk a little bit about that. And what are some of the key components of starting a good culture in your company? Because I hear a lot about culture. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Oh, you got to have great culture, but it's very nebulous. Like, what does that mean to have a great culture? Does a great culture mean it's got ping pong tables in the corner and, people are, or does a great culture mean that everyone's a family? How can you give us a definition of company culture and like some of the key components of starting one that actually you want to work in?
Yeah. A great question. Is a culture is the personality of a business, period. And the personality of a business tends to come through the personality of us as leaders. And so I think you're answering your question. I think both can be successful. The ping pong, I use this example all the time, a Google culture versus an Amazon culture. A Google culture has software engineers. They're very creative. They have the ping pong tables and the nap rooms. Take naps and go get massages and stuff if they're not feeling creative, because they're big coders and so forth. They don't like org charts and chain of command. Very successful. Amazon, results driven, loves chains of command, hierarchical, customer satisfaction. Talking about logistics, my God, you could ship this phone today. I could ship it to you. It might even get to you by this afternoon. So unrelentless customer satisfaction. So both are successful. It's just the personality of the leader and who got that started. So we have to choose. I lean more toward the Amazon culture. I'd probably have a nervous breakdown if I walked in and saw my employees taking a nap, or, I don't take naps, so I don't expect them to take naps, or saying, hey, I'm just not feeling very creative, so I'm going to go get a massage. That just don't work for me. Right. So I lean more toward the Amazon. I think it's just vicariously through the personality of us as the leader and how we actually lean. Then I think we are able to recruit people that like that culture too. I probably wouldn't, a software engineer would probably repel that person, could inside an interview. I'm too in a box. I like time commitments. Software engineers don't like time commitments. They don't like deadlines. I have harder times, honestly, inside our culture with maybe somebody very intelligent, because they like that creative side. And maybe I wouldn't have been able to recruit that person. And the opposite's true, is that Google couldn't recruit somebody like you or me, because we're too results driven. It might take them 5 years to do a project. That I can't be on a project. I want to see some results. The end of my line I'm talking about is my line I'm picking for the day. I want to see some results. I look back, okay, that's all done. I don't know. So that's my definition of culture, is the personality of a business. And then we recruit vicariously through that culture, and retain vicariously through that culture, and grow
and
through that culture.
And conversely, reject people that don't fit the culture, right? Because what
Correct.
you're putting out there, that's just as important as who you're bringing in, is who you're not bringing in.
Correct.
I had a coach mentor one time that his culture was very, I don't know, macho-esque. And they swore in the office. And so they incorporated swearing into the interview process, because they wanted to make sure anybody that was coming in knew what they were getting into, which I thought was an interesting philosophy, but not sure I recommend it, but interesting.
Nope.
So
see, it doesn't work within your personality, and somebody else, obviously they might have a team of many, many employees, and somebody else it works for. I just think that we have to know and be true to ourselves and understand that.
100%. All right. So we're getting back into the business and kind of creation of all these businesses and stuff. I think you started into real estate in an interesting way. And so I want to touch on that, because the general path that most people enter real estate is, I'm going to find a rental, I'm going to start there, maybe do a flip. And then eventually they graduate into lending. And you went right to lending, and then eventually you went a little bit backwards. Can you talk to me about what was appealing about the lending space, and knowing that maybe you didn't get to the rental space until after you saw everyone buying the rentals, but what was appealing about lending, and what about lending lends itself to being so successful in all your other entrepreneurial endeavors, other businesses?
It goes back to where I think as a kid, I hadn't really thought about this, but just jumped out at me. As a kid, I grew up again in church, and I'm friends with these boys, and their dad was a financial planner. And so we hung out a lot. They played basketball. We all hung out a lot. Our families hung out a lot, and they went to our church. And so I was sometimes at their dad's financial planning thing, and would sit and listen at his office. And I would sit and listen to him go over the rule of 72. And if you don't know about it, it's just about compound interest. So if you're bearing 6%, you divide 6 into 72, that means your money's going to double every 12 years. Mm-hmm. The opposite's true. If you're bearing 12%, your money's going to double every 6 years, because you just divide the rule of 72. I heard him preach. I heard him say that so many times to so many different people. I just would sit and listen, and I really got interest in compound interest probably at 13, 14, 15 years old. So I got super interested in it, and really started thinking really that can, so I heard him explain that you start with 100,000, and in 6 years, if we can get you 12%, that thing will double and then that 100 doubles to 200, and then that 200 doubles to 400, and that 400 doubles to 800. So the doubles were really exciting to me for whatever reason so I got interested in it. You have no idea why and how. So I had that in my mind. When I left UPS. I didn't use it a lot at UPS, except when we would get, as management people, we got stock every Christmas. And so I was learning about UPS stocks. I kind of got into that a little bit just because of the stock option that I was provided. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. And so I think vicariously through Wayne Durham, through UPS and stock options, I learned about interest and compound interest and got excited about it. And so that when now I'm sitting at this insurance company trying to get insurance for when I left UPS, weirdly sitting down talking to Sonia, like, hey, how are you? She's super nice. And explain what I was doing and why I was there. And she's like, I'm here too. We're self-employed and I need to learn about insurance because again, there's no websites back then. It's just like you more front facing customer service. And so we had 20 minutes and next thing I know, I'm learning she's got a mortgage company. I knew about mortgages because I had moved 11 times with UPS. So I knew about mortgages and real estate because I had moved so much. So I think it just, again, I'm faith-based, so I'm going to call that was God just putting her beside me. You could call it whatever you want to call it, but I was supposed to be there at that time, and I'm not kidding you. Within 10 days, I'm in her office working with her for free for a year. That's how it kind of worked. And now I'm like, okay, I got compound interest from Wayne. I got UPS's stock. Now I'm learning this mortgage world, and it was like click, 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 and something inside of me was like, this is super interesting. And then I learned how that side made money. And I'm like, wow, it's just the way the world works and life works. If you're in the right place and willing to talk to people, I think the relationship thing, as you talk about with kids and, I never had children, but I would have a hard time with this thing right now with kids, just because I need you to talk to me I need you to be comfortable with my face. Mm-hmm. And I was always very interested. So I would always ask questions. And I think by me, Sonia's very reserved. She would have never talked to me. I'm the weird one, like, how are you? What do you do? I'm that person on the plane that would annoy you. Like, what do you do? How are things going? Like, well, tell me more about it. Is that you too?
Same.
Yeah. I don't know how you learn without that.
Yeah, I don't either. And so it's not a consternation point with my wife, but our second child is very much like that. And he is also a hustler. And so it's hilarious to me and I encourage it. We go to baseball tournaments. So my son does travel ball and he's running around. He does not a baseball player. He's running around. He still found shells at the beach, sold them, made like $15, just talking to everybody, just hustling. And it makes my wife so uncomfortable because she doesn't, she grew up in a family where she's very reserved. She doesn't think she should go talk to other people. Certainly doesn't think you should go sell things. And I'm just like, let him go. Like I will never have to worry about him having money in my life because that kid will be able to sell ice to an Eskimo.
Wow.
So,
no, that's a special trait, especially at their age with all the other access to things that they have now. Yeah. Let the boy go talk to people. Again, I'm serious. I'm sure she's concerned with somebody snatching him up and that kind of thing. But heck, we probably had it back then too. We just, y'all are teaching him how to deal with that and this life.
Yeah, I think it's just too how she was grown up or raised. I think it's less about snatching. I think it's more about just being uncomfortable that you're selling, right? The sleazy salesman kind of mentality, and you don't want your child to go annoy someone. And I'm like, well, he's 8 and he's trying to sell them a seashell. They can tell him to go away. Plus, everybody here has kids, otherwise they wouldn't be at a baseball tournament. Yes. So they're used to annoying children.
Yes. Yes, so true.
So that's interesting. So I had, so we talked earlier about, this concept of you like to bring in these operators to help run these businesses. You like to have a business that's big enough. And I want to touch a little bit on this point because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they get in their mind, like, I'm going to grow this business to a certain size where then I can hire an operator and step out of that business and be passive. Right. And I want to get your thoughts on that mentality, where it's wrong, where it's right, and just generally where you've seen that, how that's gone for you or other people you've seen in your career.
Yeah. If you're running a business, my tentacles go up. And again, it could be not a great trait of mine, and it might go back to how we were both raised. But when somebody says that they just wants to be just completely passive, and I just want to, go travel and be on the golf course or whatever. Okay, we got Warren Buffett he's in the office every day. Okay. Jeff Bezos was in the office every day. He just now obviously turned over the CEO role. All these boys and women are in the office every single day or in the job every single day. This passive thing is overrated. In my in my opinion, take it or leave it. Balancing is overrated to me. I call it work-life harmony instead of work-life balance. Like, I take my work with me. And some people say, well, you can do that because you don't have kids. I think I would be the exact same way, because I have worked with mentors and people that do it the exact same way, that are high drivers and high potential. And so it fuels me. So I want to take it with me. I'm not like, oh God, I need a break. Now let's go back to but I want to get too off the subject right there. But I really feel that you have to be involved. Do I have levels in between me and a process? Like my processors would never call me. They have there's 2 levels in between now, 2 levels in between a processor and me. But the first 2 years, it was me and one other person that's now my managing director, Angela Dunn, who was a previous college teammate of mine for 100 years, and one other employee. I mean, we were doing it all. So you start out, you do backstroke out after about 2 years when you can get the revenue up and start hiring people. But backstroking out does not mean that I'm going to the beach. The backstroking out is getting a level in between me and the front line where I can work on visionary things and working on the business instead of in the business. But am I going to be on a sales call today at 11:30? It's a big loan. It's a friends of mine. I'm not saying, hey, will you call Anna, my director of sales? I don't do that. I'm going to pick up the phone. We're going to talk at 11:30. It's in my backyard. I know exactly where it's at. I love the loan. And I'm going to talk them through. Am I too good for that? Heck no. Heck no. Am I too good to go over? I flipped I was a flipper for 18 years inside of all that world of my real estate stuff. I was a landlord and I flipped a bunch of deals. So when we got a property back, as you know, you in lending, you sometimes get one back. It goes to foreclosure and it doesn't sell, you get it back. But did I go over and make sure that, or just check on things and check on that budget and that kind of thing? Heck yeah. Do I have somebody doing that? Heck yeah. But I don't know. I think it's overrated, and it makes me think, like, even an operator that I might invest with on my real estate stuff now as a LP syndicator, I will not go in when an operator is telling me that if I'm just listening and I'm hearing his life story, if he wants to brag about being on the golf course 5 days a week, I'm not impressed. That's me.
So my flags go up as well, or my eyebrow for sure, because anybody that's trying to get to like where you're at and thinks that they're going to just back away, they're never going to get there if they have that mentality, because they don't have the mentality to get there to begin with, right? And so the people that get to where you're at are the people that love doing it, because it's hard. You don't get a lot of sleep sometimes. It's stressful. It's just hard. And if you don't have a drive to do it, you're going to just bail out and find something easier.
You will. Absolutely. It's that starting thing you was talking about, right? Some people just don't have it. Well, they might think that they can go in and start something, and I don't know. I'm just not impressed with it. I'm just not. You look at the big performers and people, whether you want to be a billionaire or not, nowadays we track billionaires instead of millionaires. And what are some of the daily activities that they do? And it's typically, I'm not telling you to have fun and to go take a break. I'm talking about the day-to-day activities are not constantly out of the office and not involved. I love a meeting, but I don't want, that's something like you was talking about, taken back from your other employee or other employer. When you're big, like where you came from and where I came from, they love a meeting and they have a meeting to have another meeting, right? So I have pulled away from that, but I need a every 2-week update to be able, from all my directors, to be able to see every department and where it's at. And I need to be able to pull a report whenever I want to see where we're at, to be able to know what to work on for the whole vision of the company. I don't want to be that removed, because it's talking about sleepless nights. Not knowing is way more for me. We're carrying a big cross for investors' capital. We've raised $54 million in 5 years. That is a big cross to bear. That's investors, that's people's hard-earned money. I'm a big advocate of that. That's our job, is to be a steward of our investors' capital. I need to be involved. I should be involved. That is a lot of capital to be responsible for, and I need to know what's going on.
Yeah, you get this mentality, this CEO or the entrepreneurs at the top of the food chain, but you got investors you got to make sure are taken care of. You got employees you got to make sure are taken care of. You got your own family, you got your partner's family. There are a lot of people, depending on the decisions that you're making on a daily basis and the things that maybe you don't want to do that need to get done. And those are the things that drive me, right? Because I'm holding on to someone's retirement fund that you're going to need in 15 years. And I can't be the one that messes that up. I won't be the one that messes that up.
You
right?
won't be.
And the same thing for my kids as well. So
That's exactly
there's a lot of stress, but you got to have the mentality that you're going to start something. And I think going back to what you said earlier about not just starting the row, but finishing the row, too many entrepreneurs, they start out on something and then they get like 18 months in, it starts to get to that monotony stage where it's just over and over. And then they start looking for the shiny thing, the new thing. I was doing flips and now I'm going to go do new builds, or I was doing new builds and now I'm going to go do land development, or whatever it is. They're always looking for the new thing and they never work it long enough for it to get so boring that they actually get somewhere.
Yeah, so true. Great point.
So I struggle with just having enough time in my day with just one main business. Can you talk to us a little bit about your time management skills? You obviously picked some of those up with being a college level athlete, right? And then working at UPS and then all these other jobs. But what are some things that you do, or how do you manage your time to make sure that you're being the most productive and working on the things that are going to move the ball forward the fastest?
I'm very structured, pretty much, I'm not an early bird, but let's just say probably 6:30, 7 o'clock, you can find me in the same spot every morning. I do the exact same thing, from writing my goals every morning to a devotion, to breathe for a second, drink some coffee, So I'm very, 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 very structured with my morning routine.
What do you think that provides you? Sorry, what do you
think
think
it
that
provides me clarity for the day. I can get a lot done from 6:30 to noon. And I've known, and I've had to figure out that is everybody's different. Like some people are fresh and great from 7 to midnight. You just can't call me for a big decision at midnight. It's not going to happen. That's where my body is fresh and exhilarated, and I can get a lot of stuff done during that time. And lastly, if I put it, whether it is a workout, of which I have learned that when I am in good shape, or I feel good about my body, it isn't what it used to be, but I try to keep it in a certain shape on purpose, because now I feel better. I feel better about myself, and now I'm going to present better, and then I'll be a better leader and I'll be a better person. Not to get too weird, but maybe you have some women listening to your show, is that, especially in a man's environment, of which I have tended to be in a lot in my life. I have to walk in, and I want to walk in, and now I don't even think about it, but as a young woman, I worked on my confidence in my body so that I felt good walking into a room with a bunch of men, because I was the only woman at the conference room table. I was the only woman there at UPS. So I really had to learn how to take that walk in with, hey, I deserve to sit at this table. So I think the better I feel about myself. And so if I have a workout on my calendar, which I put it on my calendar, just like I do a meeting, it is on the calendar. It will happen. It's not like going to take that off to provide this meeting. I put myself first so that I can be the leader that I needed to be. So I don't put a ton of boundaries on, like, only look at my emails. Some people only look at their emails twice in a day. That's not me. I enjoy my inbox. I enjoy my phone. I'm not weird about my phone, because I have been through 2008, 9, and 10 when this sucker would not ring for shit. I couldn't make it ring. I was in the lending business and I couldn't make it ring. So I think I have a little PTSD about that. So I'm not weird about my phone. I'm not weird. I'm always open to a phone call or to a text. Do I have an assistant? Yes. And but she's not in my inbox. I enjoy my own. I've listened to other ways how other people do with assistants. I don't use her that way. I still like the relationship, because that's what drives me. Now, you could be completely different, or somebody else could be completely different listening to this, and they would want somebody answering their emails and such. That's just not what I feel that would make me successful, and hasn't helped me, because I enjoy that. I don't want to be out of something I enjoy. I want to write, and I wrote down, this was early on, this was a good exercise. I wrote down on a whiteboard all the things I do when let's say I was a one person show, or just 2 people on my team. And I would write down everything I did that day when I was finding that next hire or the admin. And then I would just draw a line from get the mail, open the mail, those kind of stuff. I hated, wasn't good use to my time. But at the time when I'm starting a new business on the come up, I had to do it. So when I was ready and had the revenue to bring somebody in, was an assistant first. And I was just drawing a line from that to her, that to her, that to her. Well, I like to do that. I'm keeping that. That moves me and motivates me and a good use of my time. That's not, I'm going to move that to her. And so that was my first hire years and years and years ago. And I think it's benefited me. Now you got to learn how to use a assistant and like her or him that works for you. Like I can travel with mine, and because she's a friend at this point, and it's not weird either. Like for my wife's birthday, 50th birthday, she traveled with us, and she got everything. And she's a friend of ours at this point. Like she handled everything. She handles our travel, and she handles our meals and all that. And it's not weird. And I take good care of her, and she takes good care of me. It's just the way it is, without making it seem pretentious or I'm better than you. It's her job, and my job is to provide an income for her, and she likes that, and I like that. You got to find the right one.
Yeah, this goes back to our conversation about everybody has different ways of thinking about things. Mm-hmm. And for everything that you absolutely hate doing, there's someone out there that would love to do it, or it's their favorite thing, right? So I'm glad you brought up the fitness thing, because that's a big portion of my life too. When I had Jason Seward on, we talked about it as well. I know you know Jason,
yes.
But I've worked out every single day for a year and a half now, and continue.
You went through a big change, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, long story. 10 years ago, I was about 300 pounds, and then started working out. And then I had some health issues pop up a year or 2 years ago. Okay. They're under control now, but it just kind of reset my mind of like, hey, if I want to not go on dialysis in 10 years, I need to change some things. And I also want to set a good example for my kids. Yes. And I also know that as my job is to go out and talk to borrowers and to talk to investors, like there is a initial snap judgment that everyone makes. And when you see someone that is grossly overweight, and whether they might be the nicest person in the world, the first thought is they're probably not the hardest worker, right? And I don't want to have that. I want to feel good about myself so I can talk to people. And so there's multiple different reasons I do it. But at the end of the day, it's about me feeling better about myself and about just my body feels better when I get a workout in every morning. And honestly, with 4 kids, it's sometimes the only time of the day that I get any peace and quiet.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. And applaud you for taking that challenge and really crushing it with that. So good for you.
So the question I ask everybody on this podcast as we get towards the end is, if you could take what you know now in your current stage of life and take it back to yourself when you were 18 or 19, it can be work, it can be business, it can be personal. What advice would you give 18-year-old Kelli from the information that you know now?
Well, let's say that 18-year-old is an entrepreneur. Something that just jumped up in my brain when you said that is to not be afraid to jump into a vehicle, asset class, a business that's big enough to change your life. That, I think we start out and we think we have to start out small to get educated or to learn and that kind of thing. Is that maybe you do at 18, I would say you're going to have to learn a little bit or mentor behind somebody. Don't be afraid to go to work for somebody for free at 18 years old and to learn something if somebody can help you along the way, and ask a ton of questions. So I would say take 18 to early 20s to maybe get educated, work for somebody let somebody mentor you, and go to work for them and shadow them like crazy. There's so many great people, you included. There's people, I love it when somebody will come up and ask me a question and say, hey, can I shadow you for the day? Actually my trainer, he's 29. He's just so inquisitive. And I help him out all the time because I don't usually have people come up to me like that and ask me that. So he shadows me all the time. And so I love it and I'm willing to give. So don't be afraid to ask and to shadow and to learn. And then when you do get in your first business or so forth, don't be afraid to just go. Like make it big enough where it changes your life, where it's big enough and scalable that you can produce enough revenue where you can build a team out and do what you want to do. And for it be big enough again to take the place of a W-2 or be able to be scaled that you can make more money than you ever dreamed about doing. But if you get into a business that's just not scalable because you're just doing it by yourself, or just the business in general isn't scalable, you just got a job. You just got a job.
Do you think people think too small when they're getting started?
Absolutely. I think they think too small. I think I thought too small for a lot of years. My light switch went on late. My light switch did not go on until 2018. It did not. 2018. That was only 7 years ago. But when it went on so bright that I can't even believe I would even start a landscaping company, even though it did 500 grand. That is way too small. That's way too small that I would even do some of the things that I did because my light switch went on. And that also meant the people that I was around. It took a certain type of people that I started being around, one person in general, that his name's Danny Randazzo, and now I'm a partner with him. And that boy is wicked smart and thinks so big. That I don't know. I started when we were talking. This is really dreaming. So take it as you may. I don't want to sound like I'm pretentious. I'll use that word again. But like when we would talk, and he would say, I don't know, whatever. If it's what's your goal for the year? And I would say $1 million. Okay, 19 was the first time I made $1 million in a year netted. And he said, well, what can we do to make $1 million in a day? Or what can we make, or $1 million a month? I was thinking, I just now started thinking about $1 million in a year, right? It's 83,333 a month. That's what I started changing on my goals. 83,333. Prior to me meeting him, weirdly, the light had started flickering, and he just made that thing go all the way on, because I was like, well, maybe I can make it a month. And I didn't even my brain had not even gone there, because it just went there on going. I was probably making about $500,000 a year, 40,000 a month is what I wrote down every month. I remember doing that in 2018, and I switched it to 83,333 because of something Grant Cardone said, and take him or leave him, whatever you want to say, but something he said back in the day made me switch my goals to 83,333 a month. Then Danny came in my life. And now he's trying to get me to think about that $1 million a month. And so I'm like, what? Well, what kind of asset class or what type of business can we get into that even can generate that? And then how many widgets do you need to sell in order to generate that? So isn't it funny how my brain had not even gotten there, but when it goes there, it goes there. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It's the most interesting thing that I can't even explain it. I can't explain what that juju or woo-woo stuff is, but it's something, our minds are crazy. And then opportunities start coming in. Like that opportunity would have never come in. Or maybe it was there and we didn't see it because we hadn't gone there yet.
It's the red car paradox, right? You start thinking about red cars, you'll start seeing red cars. And you start thinking about opportunities, you start seeing opportunities. 100%. I think everybody in the audience can relate to the thought of, I remember exactly when something on some topic clicked in my brain that wasn't there before. And it should have always been there, but all of a sudden it just clicked, and then everything starts showing up, right?
Right.
I'm sure I haven't gotten to that level of the full light coming on yet. I mean, I've got big goals, but I know one of those click moments was I had a coach. I was in a mentor program with a big group of people about 1.5 years ago. And it was one of these groups where I spent a bunch of money, probably was the smallest person in the room every week. And just to hear what these people were doing on a regular basis, and not to sound arrogant, but I'm like, I'm just as smart as this guy. There's no reason why I can't do what he's doing or better. Right. And it just resets your mind. And similar, I went to a family office meeting last year in New Hampshire, and just to see like the level of wealth that those people have, it's something you never saw in rural Michigan.
Right? No, you never saw it. There's no way you saw it. Our families, if somebody made 6 figures, they were something else.
My family always said, the postman, he's the highest paid guy in the city.
Postman, UPS man, they rolling in it.
Yeah,
it's very, very interesting. And again, it's not to me, and I have to say, and I mean this, and I know some people say this, but I truly mean this. To me, that's just a scoreboard at this point in my life. Like I've always known, and this is what just kind of clicked also, was that I need a scoreboard. I need it whether I was scoring points or whether I'm looking at my checkbook or a checking account. I need a scoreboard, and that's what it is. It just happens to be digits now. And, you and I both could have a great life on those numbers I was talking about, whether it's $1 million a year at $80,000 a month. That's plenty. I mean, I could live off that even today. I could live off that, half that, to be honest with you. And maybe even a third of that. But why do we want more? And I think it's just because we're trying to find that best version of ourselves. And that best version, I can do it. So if I can do it, why not? And whether it's to our family, that yours just came in that door, I just saw him come in, or heard him. or whoever it is. It's our, we're still trying to be the best version of ourselves. That's it.
This has been a real pleasure talking to you, Kelli. If anybody wants to reach out to you, learn about your businesses, learn about you, where can they contact you?
Easy. It's just easy. Go to rehabwallet.com. There's a contact there. And just, you see my name on the bottom of here. It's Kelli with an I at rehabwallet.com. Shoot me an email. It's very easy. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, my company's all over the place out there. So thank you.
Awesome. And I'll make sure all that's in the show notes when we post this. Really appreciate your time. I think audience is going to get a lot out of your wisdom. And thank you again. So everybody, thank you for your time, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Brick by Brick Wealth Building Conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more people find the show. For more tips, resources, and updates on my journey, follow me on Invest with Loren. Let's keep building wealth, one brick at a time. See you next week.